Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Turns out nowadays, if you're a judge and you get in trouble in the news, a bunch of people send me the story and say, Steve, check this out. Especially if it's a judge in Michigan. Now, I've never been in front of this judge, but I've been in this court many, many times. But Tom, Skip, and David all sent me a story. Wayne County judge in hot water over Mackinac Island incident from the Detroit Free Press, paper I delivered as a young man. Emma Stein wrote the story. And what's going on here, it's not a Wayne County Circuit Court judge, but Wayne County is where Detroit is. And the Detroit City Courts are the 36th District Court, but it's within Wayne County as a geographical location. But it's a 36th District Court judge. Wayne County Judge Demetria Brew is facing scrutiny and a formal complaint over her alleged misconduct in a Mackinac Island bike shop. There's an island in Lake Huron, just east of the Mackinac Bridge, called Mackinac Island. And it's a beautiful vacation spot. It's a destination. People love that island. It was heavily featured in the movie Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve. But the island has almost no motorized vehicles on it, other than like ambulances and fire trucks, for the most part. So if you go there, you got to walk or ride a bike. You can bring your own bike or you can rent a bike. And bike shops out there are one of the primary businesses. Bikes everywhere, as far as the eye can see. You can also go for a carriage ride with a horse pulling you, which is another scenic thing you can do. But the Judicial Tenure Commission has filed a public complaint against the judge here, alleging professional misconduct. Now, it's not misconduct on the bench. It was her out in public. And by the way, I've had some people say, Steve, if you're a judge, do you really have to behave better all the time? For the most part, yes, you should. But here's the thing. If no one knows who you are or that you're a judge and you do something stupid, they would never find out. How you get in trouble is you start saying things like, I'm a judge. Do you know who I am? Here's who I am. Let me tell you who I am. Okay, so now you can file the complaint. Brew allegedly rented bikes from the Mackinac Island bike shop while attending a conference back in 2019. She and her colleague returned the bikes, and she told employees there was an issue with the bike and she wanted a discount. She also spoke to the owner, but was unable to come to an agreement on how much of a discount she should get. By the way, if you get a bike on that island, they go over it with you. I've seen them doing this. They go over the bike with you. You get on the bike and you ride away. If there's a problem with your bike, you would turn around and bring it back. Problem with my bike? Can I have another one of the thousands of bikes you've got here? So here I'm simply applying the common sense to the story that other people probably will also. She told the owner several times that she was a judge. She said, I'm a judge. Who cares? You rented a bike, pay me. She did not respond to a request for comment from the Freep. At some point during that 20-minute discussion, she allegedly reached over the cash register and grabbed the receipt out of the owner's hands and ripped it. Then she falsely claimed that the owner had assaulted her, the complaint says, and they quote her as saying, you assaulted me. Did you just assault me? You took my receipt and tore it up. I want the police. Now we need the police. I'm going to call them. You snatched my receipt and threw it away and grabbed my hand and you hurt me. You touched my hand with force and violence. I am a female. I am a judge. I am here for a conference and I am an African American female. That was racist and it was disrespectful and it was violent. Now, I'm just laughing because she's playing word Yahtzee here. She's just throwing them all in, hoping something sticks, right? But she literally has claimed now everything possible as to what's going on and why she's been wronged. And by the way, she failed to mention the defective bike in that paragraph. That's okay. A few minutes later, a police officer arrived, and the judge told him that the owner had assaulted her. But security footage showed her grabbing the receipt from the owner. See, here's the problem. When you are making a scene in public, you should ask yourself whether or not you're on camera. You see, if you're on camera, you got to make sure your story's right. If you're not on camera, well, I'm not suggesting you should lie, but some people realize they can. It's my word against theirs. But it turns out there was a camera recording the entire thing. So, she later admitted to the officer that the owner did not assault her. So here's a problem. Police officer shows up and goes, "What happened?" Presumably you say, "I am a judge." You say, "I am a judge. I am a female. I am here for a conference. I am an African American female. This was racist." No. So she says, "I was assaulted." The guy goes, "No, I got video. You want to see it?" Now she realizes, oh, shoot, hadn't thought of that. Then she apparently says, "Okay, he didn't assault me." Now, you might say, "Steve, she corrected herself. Isn't that correct? I mean, isn't that the right way to do things? Isn't that what she should have done?" No, she shouldn't have lied in the first place. Because when you tell somebody this happened, and then they say, "Well, we can prove it didn't," and you go, "Okay, it didn't happen." You've got the two diametrically opposed concepts there, and we know that only one of them can be true. And she's admitted that she made a false statement to a police officer. That is actually a problem. That's a problem, especially when you are a judge. And I like to point this out to people, that law enforcement officers appear in her court all the time, all day long. I'm willing to bet you that over the course of a week, 50, 100 different cops might walk in and out of her courtroom one time or another. Witnesses in cases and so on and so forth. And so if a police officer got on the stand, took the oath, and said, "This happened," and on cross-examination, the defense attorney said, "Hey, do you understand? We've got videotape of that." The officer said, "Oh, really? Okay, it didn't happen." The judge would snap. The judge would snap. Are you coming into my courtroom, taking an oath, and then perjuring yourself on the stand, and you think that you can get away with it because you corrected yourself when you got caught? She'd go nuts. And so that's one of the reasons that you have to step back and say, okay, if the average person made a false statement to a police officer, that's a problem. If a judge does it, it's a serious problem. And also because it turns out there's rules as to what judges can and cannot do when they're living outside of the courtroom. They've got rules to abide by, the judicial canons, so they must follow them. The commission, the Judicial Tenure Commission, said her actions violated 10 rules, 10, including one that forbids judges from making a knowingly false statement to a police officer. Turns out that violates a rule. Who'd have thunk? So she has served at the 36th District Court since 2012. You might say, "Steve, she's been down there a long time. You haven't been in front of her in 10 years. Well, I don't do a lot of business in 36th anymore. 36th is a district court. Most lemon law claims are filed in circuit court. So the cases I had in 36th District Court were often criminal in nature. I handled a whole bunch of criminal cases there. And I also handled some consumer issues that were non-lemon law claims. But it's been a little while since I was down there. But I don't think I was ever in front of her. The complaint from the Judicial Tenure Commission also states that she was dishonest in her answers to the commission during the investigation and failed to cooperate fully. We've said this before. Quite often, the investigation will get you because what you did originally wasn't that bad, but by failing to be truthful with whoever it is that's questioning you, then you can get into just as much trouble there, and sometimes more. The cover-up can be worse than the crime. The commission's disciplinary council will now petition the Michigan Supreme Court to appoint a master to preside over a public hearing on the complaint. She has the option to answer the complaint and must do so within 14 days. And so I've been to Mackinac Island many times. Many times. I was there this past September. I was there the previous year. They do hold a lot of conferences out there all year round. But the summertime is the big season out there. And if you get there on the ferry and you walk in, you immediately spill out onto the main street of downtown. And it's this neat old town right out of Norman Rockwell painting. There's horses clip-clopping by, pulling carriages, and there's people on bicycles and people on foot, but not a car to be heard or seen as far as the eye can see. And so you walk about 3 feet and you start seeing signs for bike rentals. And there's a bunch of bike rental shops right there on the main drag on Mackinac Island. And so if you're going to be there all day, you rent a bike. Hop on the bike, you can ride around the island. There's a bunch of places you can ride to. You can simply ride up and down. You can also walk it. I've walked it many times, but I've also had a bicycle out there. And so these bike rental places are everywhere. They're huge, and I'd be curious to know what portion of the economy they account for out there. I think it's that and fudge. But the bikes are big businesses out there. And so it doesn't surprise me that the guy's got security cameras, and now, of course, he's a genius for having them because he'd been accused of a crime by a judge. She's a judge. I am Elmer J. Fudd, millionaire. So that's all I kept thinking when I'm reading the story. I own a mansion and a yacht. But so there you go, Tom, Skip, and David. Thanks for sending it. We'll see what happens. I will follow this. But sadly, this happened 3 years ago. And it's just now hitting the news, but it's hitting the news because it's worked its way through the system. The system is not terribly public in the sense that these things don't often make the news until they announce the formal charges and so on. So I will follow this. Emma Stein wrote that for the Detroit Free Press. Wayne County judge from the 36th District Court in hot seat over Mackinac Island incident involving a bike rental and an assault that got reported backwards to the police. Questions or comments below? Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. The older I grow, the more I distrust the familiar doctrine that age brings wisdom.